Hey sisters, this is our first Provident Living video, and I am so bad at these things, but it's not funny. Hopefully this goes smoothly each week, but that's not the point. The point is that we talk about food storage. Well, not just food storage, but other things as well. We're going to start with food storage though. We're going to base this according to those of you who are novice or haven't done it before, and kind of go by that. So if you are really great at it and have done it for a long time, there's other helps out there that I'm sure are more beneficial than I am. But we're going to start with this one. So I'll throw in stories along the way as we have time. And so just a little bit of background. I grew up with my parents doing food storage. We always had food storage as long as I can remember. And they were great at it. We always had a garden. We always canned. I have to say there's some things they were better at than I am, but I'm going to talk about the things that I've learned and the things that have helped me, and hopefully they'll help you a little bit along the way. But I have a big testimony of food storage, Provident Living preparation. It has come in handy. First story, very quickly. When we were very first married, literally just a few months, we had our own little food storage. It was just a couple of shelves and one cupboard. That's all I had. But that's what we could afford. We were so poor. We were so poor that when my grandma found out how much money we were spending on groceries, and she was not, super wealthy herself, she sent me care boxes. And then we went, oh, well, maybe we should increase our grocery budget. But we were managing. So I just had some things in my cupboard. So we lived in Rexburg, Idaho. We're going to Ricks College. And it was a holiday weekend, so the closest Bishop Storehouse was in Idaho Falls, which was half an hour, 40 minutes away, depending on the roads, and it was not great roads at that time. We always had a blizzard there, it seemed like, and definitely that weekend was one. And we had a knock on our door, and it was a couple of the brothers in our ward, and they were home teachers to a little family who had a little married couple who had a baby. So this family was out of food. And literally for 2 days, they had been existing on water, and the baby had been existing on water. And they were going door to door because it just so happened that our entire bishop was out of town, so there was nobody to do an emergency food order for them. And also with the holiday, the Bishop Storehouse was closed. I'm sure there were probably other avenues they could have taken, but they decided to go door to door in the ward and knock on the door and to see if people had extra food they could give. So they knocked on our door, and I remember just thinking, wow, that's so great that I have this little tiny bit of food storage, and sure, you guys can have it. Take it to them and give them something to eat. So that just reaffirmed to me the importance of food storage, even when you're in tight, hard circumstances. It's just, if it doesn't benefit you, it can benefit those you love or those around you. So let's talk a little bit about food storage. Today we're just going to kind of rehash what was in the monthly newsletter last month and add a little bit to it, and then I'll have an assignment for you at the end for next week. So we're going to talk about variety, and variety is important in your food storage. So if you went out and got your 2-year supply, or 1-year supply, stick with that, 1-year supply of flour or wheat, rice, beans, good for you. But those are going to taste really bad and not going to get any better if that's all you have in your house. So that's great. Those are foundational. But I'll just let you know, I hate beans. My family hates beans. We don't store very many beans. So we do our protein other ways. If I had to, I have some beans in storage. They'd have to soak for 80 years before might be palatable. They've been in there a long time. But I would probably choose other avenues before I ate the beans. I don't know. That was a staple at my house growing up. I don't know what it is. We just don't do beans at my house. So we do it other ways. But, so by variety, I am talking about variety of preparation of food storage. So we all know about the canned goods. Got our little corn here. And everybody's familiar with canning home goods. Then there's the dehydrated foods, which you would find a lot at the Bishop's, or not the Bishop's Storehouse, the cannery, the church cannery. And those are good too. And then we have the creme de la creme, and not necessarily this brand, but the freeze-dried. So let's talk a little bit about that, all of those. So it's really great to have your freezer full, your fridge full, your pantry full, your just full, but not full with things you don't use. I don't store a lot of beans because I'm not going to eat the beans. So great if you have your supply of beans. I don't, and I won't, and that's okay because you want to store what you eat. Now, if what you eat is 5 days of fast food and Stouffer's meals from the freezer at Walmart, you're probably going to have to reevaluate that and change a few things because that, let's just pretend, is not available and we have to do things other ways. So the reason I tell you to have a variety is because if you have some of these on hand, and maybe they're not your favorite, maybe you like the frozen better, but let's say we lose power for whatever reason, bad snowstorm, who knows? I'm not going there, but or big earthquake could happen. All kinds of different things that could happen in the final days. And before COVID, we might have all gone, yeah. I think that has opened eyes for a lot of people as to what things are possible. And I think in my heart, it's just a precursor. So if you have these stored, obviously they don't have as much shelf life. And I wish I'd gotten all corn. Of course, you don't dehydrate corn. I guess you can, then you don't feed it to families. So the nice thing about this kind of thing, yeah, it doesn't last a huge long time, but it has water in it. So water is also a really good thing to store. So if we're going to have corn for dinner, we're going to drain off the water and use that in the soup, or use that, seriously, people, just even to drink. But you've got water stored in here, which is really great. Same thing with home canned goods. Now, you can get, and this is according to Teresa Hunsaker at the USU. I don't think she even works there anymore at the Utah State Extension. But she came one time when we did a thing at our ward, had her come. And she used to go scrapbooking with her years ago. Anyway, really, if your canned goods are stored optimally, you can have 7 to 8 years in your jars. But you've got to be careful. That's not true for every product. So you got to be really careful with like meats and tomato-based products, things like that. But so on a side note, this has water in it as well. So there's liquids as well as this. And it's really good to know how to can your own food and to have that on hand. You don't have to live just solely off of that. That is great. Okay, so we're going to talk about dehydrated. Dehydrated foods are great. They last a pretty long time. This one's probably getting past the time it needs to be pulled and eaten. But dehydrated is something you can do at home. Actually, freeze-dried is now something you can do at home. But when you dehydrate things, you lose some of the nutrients. And, of course, you have to just have the munchable dehydrated thing. If you're going to reconstitute it, if I was to pour water on those apples, they would just be kind of a soggy, weird mess. Could work, but not optimal. Now, your optimal food storage is freeze-dried. And the reason for that is because it retains just about all of its nutritional value and color and texture. And when you rehydrate it, it's as close as you're going to get to the real thing without having the real thing. 2 cons to that, though: the price. So those are really expensive, and the water. So if you have only this in your food storage, you're going to have so much water, you're going to have your own little mini lake. And that's probably not possible. Now, we all assume we can just go to the tap and turn on the water and it'll be great. But there's been plenty of stories with contaminated water. I mean, nothing spectacular has happened, but the water's not great. If a fire came through and destroyed the water plants, or if people talk about the EMS, electrical matter. Anyway, if that happened, it could affect the water supply. If An earthquake happened, definitely could affect the water supply. You may not have the water that you need out of the tap. And to store enough water to do a year's supply of this is almost impossible. So, not almost, depending on the size of your family, even just one person, that is a lot of water. So unless you have a well in your backyard, which before I moved here, I did have a lovely artesian well. Hard to leave for a couple of reasons. I had a really great Provident Living place that I left. Not that this isn't, but it's not quite up to par as what we left behind. But that's okay. You're supposed to be here. So if you guys just do a variety of things, and we're going to start small. So I don't want you to go out and get a year's supply of rice or a year's supply of beans. What I want you to do is think about what you fix on a weekly basis and start there. So if you do cook at home, if you don't cook at home, you might want to rethink that and start, even if it's just a little bit. But let's say you cook Sunday dinner roast. Well, about the only way you're going to be able to store roast, not in your freezer or fridge, is this, and it's going to be pretty pricey, and you'll have to have water on hand to reconstitute it. So if you could not go to the store or your backyard and shoot the cow, then you are going to have to store it some other way. That's great. You've got roast. So what do we put with the roast? Potatoes and gravy. Okay. Do you have the ingredients to make gravy? Do you have the spices? Do you have the packets, if that's the way you do it? Do you have potatoes? And I think I've heard a lot of people say, well, I'll just raise a garden. We finally get to that point, I'll finally raise a garden. Well, when did COVID happen? It happened in March. And the stores were shy on some things. I think this was just a small taste of what could happen in a really big emergency. COVID hasn't been fun. But were any of you, seriously, let's get real, were any of you really panicked about toilet paper? If you had it in your house, no. If you didn't have it in your house, were you wondering, what are we going to do? That's where you're going to be at in a big time emergency. So you've got to think of these things and have all of the gamut of what you store. So if you have corn and potatoes and gravy and rolls and roast every Sunday dinner, then you've got to store all those ingredients, and not just the main ingredients, but all of the things that help you create that meal. And so what I want you to do is maybe just think about 2 weeks in your life and what you cook and prepare, and think about what you would have to have on hand to make those 2 weeks happen. No cheating and going to the grocery store. So you can't go to the backyard and dig it up. Obviously, it's December, and you can't go to the grocery store. So what would you need to have on hand in your house? So we're getting over our 10 minutes here, and I don't want to keep you longer than 10 minutes. So I'm going to give you your assignment for next week. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit about rotation of food storage. And quickly, I want you to be prepared with either a clipboard with some paper, or a sticky pad or a notepad, or even, a 3-ring binder full of paper, something that we are going to keep in our storage that we make a list with, and then that list will go with us to the grocery store because you've got to replace what you use. But the other really big deal to figure out how much you need to store for your family of each item is a Sharpie marker. And I will explain that. A permanent marker, it doesn't have to be Sharpie. I will explain more on that next week. So if you have any questions or concerns, or definitely if you have anything to add to this, feel free to jump in. I'm doing this recorded just because I'm so bad at technology. I feel like this is the easier route to go. So a little bit long today. Sorry about that. We'll be back in a week. And anyway, if you have any questions or concerns or additions, I should say, call me or text me. And be happy to put those out there or to answer any questions with the limited knowledge that I do have. Anyway, hopefully that gets you started, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a great one.